Hey, good evening, everybody. This is Scott P. I'm here at my house, like affectionately call Pie Resort at Lake Tapps. And tonight we are doing a whiskey review because why? You can't have a wine and whiskey enthusiast channel without doing whiskey review as well. So my very first review was a wine from Chateau Saint Michelle. It was a Riesling. Tonight we are doing a straight bourbon whiskey from the Woodinville Whiskey Company. Now, this particular one was bottled at cask strength by myself. Personally, I got to taste 3 different barrels last year, and as you can see, I've thoroughly enjoyed this bourbon. Now, their cask strength, though, is not their core line. I don't have any of their core line with me tonight. They have 3 core line whiskeys. First is an American whiskey bottled at 80 proof. The other one is a straight bourbon whiskey bottled at 90 proof. And then they have a 100% mash bill rye that is also bottled at 90 proof. Now, what you see here, though, are some of their subgroups, their sub-whiskeys. Again, this is a straight bourbon whiskey, but this one here is cask strength. This one here is something I just purchased last month. It's 100% rye mash bill that is bottled. This one is also cask strength. This one here is bottled at 118.9%. And then they have this one here. Now this one here, I got several bottles of this last year. This is their straight bourbon whiskey, but it's finished in port casks. Okay, so for those of you familiar with Midwinter's Night's Dram from High West, which is rye whiskeys finished in French port, this is American bourbon finished in port. Now, I don't believe it's French. I could be wrong. The other ones that they have, they just came out, last year, they came out with a 90 proof bourbon that was finished with toasted apple wood staves. This year, and I got some bottles, I got a couple bottles downstairs. As a matter of fact, I've got a bottle over there in a special wood case. I should have brought it over here. It is a rye whiskey, also at 90%, that was finished with a toasted apple wood stave. And I may just go ahead and do a review of that one as well. I will tell you this, I will be doing reviews later on of the port and of the 100% rye and of the rye finished with the apple wood stave. So, but anyways, tonight, we're doing their straight bourbon whiskey bottled at 121.92. So let's talk about their bourbon. Let's talk about their whiskeys in general. All of their whiskeys, with the exception of the American whiskey, are a minimum of 5 years old. Even though the bottles are non-age stated, Brett Nolan on their website and in their literature will tell you that their bourbon and their ryes are aged a minimum of 5 years. Now, Brett Nolan are the 2 owners, and these are 2 guys that started in 2010, and they made a commitment to do craft distilling correctly. Okay, there are, and it doesn't matter if it's state of Washington or anywhere else, there are a ton of craft distillers right now that are producing an inferior product. Everybody knows one. But here, like I said, Brett Nolan did it right. From the beginning, they brought in a master distiller from Maker's Mark that helped them along. And he told the gentleman, you guys are going to do this right. And to be honest with you, they really have. They grow all of their grain out in a little town called George. Yes, George, Washington, out in eastern Washington. It's all done on the same farm. The corn, the barley, and the rye that makes up their mash bills is all grown on the same farm. The grain is brought out to Woodinville, it's distilled, it's barreled, and then it's sent back to a rick house out on the farm in George. Now, what makes this special? The fact that Eastern Washington gets some extreme temperature changes in the summertime. It could be 70 degrees one day, it could be 110 degrees the next day, and it's arid. Basically, Eastern Washington is a dry, high desert. So, they have that, and then in the wintertime, it's cold. It can be cold and windblowing. So there's a lot of changes with the oak, with the way the oak interacts with their whiskey. So anyways, let's go ahead and take a nose of this. Right off the bat, The alcohol really comes through. You can really tell this is a high proof bourbon. But behind that, you get caramel, you get toasted vanilla, you get a little bit of toffee. But what really is striking about this bourbon is there is a dry spice note. Almost like baking spices, star anise. Not so much with the licorice flavor to it, but you also get a little bit of a cinnamon, a little bit of a nutmeg, and then there is a floral note, almost like a dry potpourri that your wife would put in a bathroom. But it's very pleasant. And one of the things I like about, personally, I'm a rye whiskey drinker. I love a good rye whiskey, which is why I fell in love with the ryes. But they also have a good rye amount in their mash bill. I don't know what the percentages are, but you can definitely tell on the nose and on the palate that they do place a lot of emphasis on good quality ryes. Matter of fact, they're so worried about the quality of ryes that they're worried that they won't have enough to make the bourbon. So they put whatever's left of the rye is what they make the rye with. They would rather give up the rye than give up the recipe for the bourbon. So let's go ahead and have a sip. Oh, I love nosing a good bourbon. I love nosing a good scotch, and I love nosing a good wine. Now you wouldn't know it until you taste it. This is one of the most pleasant drinking experiences when it comes to bourbon, especially a high proof bourbon like Woodinville Whiskey. That caramel, the toffee, the toasted vanilla. There's even a little bit of almost an almond or a hazelnut note to it. It's right there. There is that cinnamon is on the mid palate, and the most important thing to me, especially when I'm tasting a whiskey, especially when I'm tasting a wine, I want to be able to put my glass down for a while, and I want it to linger. I want the finish. This bourbon has an amazingly long finish. I feel confident enough to say that if I were to put this glass down for 2 or 3 minutes, 2 or 3 minutes later, I would still have the finish on the back of my tongue. It's very, very pleasant. Now, one thing I normally don't do is I normally do drink my whiskeys, my ryes, neat, no matter what the proof, unless it's really high proof, like something like a Stag Junior. But just to see what's going to happen now, there's oils in bourbon that react to a little bit of water. Now, I either put in a regular bottled water, or I'll even add a little bit of carbonated water, depending on the kind of flavor that I'm going for. Excuse me. And unfortunately, my camera setup is not so good that you could see, but the water is reacting with the oils in there. And if you roll it around, even with the water added, this has some beautiful legs that cling to the side of the glass. Now this glass, for those that don't know, because like I said, I'm hoping that this channel reaches people that are interested in researching good bourbons, good whiskeys, good scotches, good wines, that want to expand their palate. This glass is called a Glencairn glass. And the Scotch Whisky Association designed these glasses years ago to enhance the nosing and basically focus the flavors of whiskeys. And this is a particular one from the Woodinville Whiskey Company right there. I can tell you, I'll be honest with you, I'm a fanboy, really, of this company. Anyways, if you haven't found any glasses, get on Amazon and purchase yourself some of these Glencairns. It will drastically improve the flavor and the nosing of the whiskey. So let's go ahead and have a quick nose of this now that we've added the water. The floral note is a little bit more subdued. The caramel and the toffee are still there, but it's a little bit more rounded. And then there's the spice. It didn't do anything to subdue the spice, and that really is a wonderful thing for me. Like I said, I could spend 30 minutes nosing a whiskey, and it's something that I truly enjoy. So let's go ahead and see what the water did. Well, the water may have subdued the floral note on the nose, but that floral note is there now. It's more like instead of a lavender or a dried potpourri, it's actually more like a cherry blossom. There's a little bit of kind of a fruit note there. The spice, still there. The vanilla's kind of gone away though, just a little bit, and the caramel is there, and you really do taste the wood notes now, the oak notes from the aging in the barrels out in Eastern Washington. It really does highlight it. So if you like that sweet oak char type, and I don't know what char level the barrels are at, but you can definitely taste it now. Anyways, be honest with you, with just a little bit of water, I wouldn't add too much to a cask strength. Now, again, this is cask strength, and this one was a special bottling that I got directly at the distillery. Now, you can go to the distillery, and they do sell the cask strength. But for those in the Pacific Northwest, I was actually at Total Wine over in Federal Way, and I know that the Total Wines in the state of Washington will have the Woodinville whiskeys. They probably do have the cask strength. They did. I know the Federal Way store had the cask strength that said selected by Total Wine. So I'm going to assume that most of the Total Wines in the state have that. Woodinville whiskey right now does have a limited market. They were having problems there keeping up with the production just for the state of Washington. But they do sell, I believe, in Idaho. I have seen it in Oregon, and actually this last weekend when we were in Walla Walla, I saw it at a liquor store down in Milton Freewater. So if a little town like Milton Freewater has this on the shelf, you can guarantee the guys in Portland do as well. And then earlier this year, they were purchased by Moet Hennessy. And Moet Hennessy has told Brett Nolan, you guys need to expand. And so they know for a fact they shipped their first shipments to Northern California earlier in the year. And I know that they're looking at expanding to New York. Guys, if you see this on the shelf, buy it. Buy the 90 proof bourbon or buy the 90 proof rye and give it a try. Anyways, back to Moet Hennessy here. When they purchased them, and now for those familiar with Moet Hennessy, you know that a company like that that's going to invest in a craft distiller is only going to invest in a craft distiller that they can trust to produce a quality product. I mean, Moet Hennessy owns Ardbeg. It owns Glenmorangie, obviously Hennessy brandy and cognac. And they basically said, you keep up with the good product, we're going to help you guys distribute this. So, that being said, let's go ahead and rate this. I've already let you guys heads up. I'm a fanboy. I really am. I would put Woodinville Whiskey, their bourbon and their rye, up against the best that Kentucky has to offer. Is this Pappy Van Winkle? No. Is this, some of the rye, some of the best 10-year ryes that, say, Michter's has? No. But their bourbon? Yeah, I would put their bourbon up against the best that, I would put this cask strength up against Booker's any day of the week. I would put it up against Knob Creek, and I'm a really big fan of Knob Creek. Willet, I'm a Willet distillery fan as well. I would put this up, the cask strength, this is one I'm tasting, I would put this up against a Willet family estate as well and compare it. I would give this on a 100 score, I'm going to give this bourbon a 90. And something that I highly recommend. I don't buy bourbons and whiskeys and scotches and wines that I don't like. And I'm going to be upfront with you folks. Most of the stuff that I'm going to review, I'm going to have a positive review of it. But I feel passionate enough to share. If you take a look out there on YouTube right now, there's not a whole lot of Woodinville whiskey reviews. I know the Scotch Test Dummies out of Oklahoma, they did a review. Sarah and the gentleman in Bourbon Night, they did a brief review of Woodinville whiskey. I believe they only had the 90 proof though. So anyways, listen, everybody, if you find it, buy it. I want to say also that please remember to drink responsibly. And as I like to say, life is too short for bad wine or bad whiskey. So long and cheers. By the way, if you like this video, please hit like, subscribe, and please leave your comments down below in the section. I will try to respond to as many comments as I possibly can. If there's somebody you think needs to see this review, if you're a fan of Woodinville whiskey, please share this and share the video to them. So, anyways, thank you much. Talk to you later.